Today we have this 2020 Infiniti Q50, and as you can see, the front bumper is in disarray. Unfortunately, the customer's car got hit by a runaway tire on the highway, but he got this upgraded bumper. It's made out of fiberglass. I forgot the name for it, but I'll just put it up on the screen. But this thing looks super aggressive. I believe this is the Q60 lookalike. He got it, painted it, and we're going to be putting it on. Quick little explanation before we get into the video. The bumper that we installed is a fiberglass bumper. It's made from a mold, so it's not going to be 100% perfectly fitting onto the car. In most normal cases, bumpers are made out of plastic, so you're able to flex and bend them. But since fiberglass is rigid, they can crack, which is an issue. So in our case, when we tried putting the bumper on at first, we had an issue with the headlight cutout. So mainly it was this bottom section as well as this top section, but the biggest problem area was this corner right here where my finger is on both sides. So one thing you can do is you can use heat in the form of a heat gun, maybe a blowtorch, but I would be careful with that. And you can heat up the area, and once it gets to a certain temperature, you'll be able to basically flex the area. And if you hold while it cools down, you'll basically make it take new shape. But in our case, that wasn't the most helpful. What ended up working was just grinding it down. So for starters, we did a couple of different things. It wasn't working, so we opted to take off the bumper bracket that holds this clip in. It's not the most important because you do have a bracket here, a bracket there. You have tabs along the top as well as the bottom splash guard that pretty much securely holds the bumper in. So I completely cut this fin off just so it looked like this, made it more flush, gave us a lot more room. And then from there, we took a Dremel tool with a sandpaper attachment, and we just grinded off millimeter by millimeter, mainly this entire section, a little bit of this top corner, and slightly around the indentation right here. And what we did was we continuously stopped, tried to fit the bumper back on, saw what was grinding, what was touching, what we need to get out of the way, and we just kept grinding down slowly but surely, and we were able to get it on. One thing I would recommend if you guys are a Infiniti owner looking to get that bumper is I highly recommend putting the bumper on first and then taking it for paint. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So first thing you want to do is pop the hood, which I've already done. And I don't have it, but right here there's going to be a plastic shroud. As you can see, there's some tabs in it, but you're going to have a couple tabs along here. And then I believe there's going to be one here and one right there. And you take that off and the plastic shroud should come off. You can just use some pry tools or a flathead. Should work. Once that plastic shroud is off, you'll have a couple more tabs underneath holding the bumper onto the frame right here. In this case, this car/engine's been heavily worked on, so the customer just removed it altogether. So I just have 4 clips right here that I'm going to be removing. So you can use a flathead or a clip removal tool. Just pry underneath and then lift up. And then there's your clip right there. After that, you're going to have 2 screws. There's going to be one in each corner. So there's one right here, one right here. There's a 10mm bolt. All you got to do is lift up on this plastic trim piece, and you can see it right there. So once you remove this 10mm bolt, you'll have this little bumper bracket. So just so you guys don't lose track, this is for the passenger side, and the pointy corner is going towards the engine bay, and it sits like that with the little cup facing towards the seats. You should also have an inscription on the bracket. So in this case, this says L, which is for the left side, and there is a R right there, right side. Pretty simple. So the next step, you want to turn your wheel all the way to one side to give you some space for the fender liner. So you will have a clip right here that you just pry off. And once you remove that, you'll be able to bend the fender liner back. And right here, where the bumper meets with the fender, there will be a 10mm bolt. Let's see if I can give you a view right here. It's a little hard to show, but right there, there's a 10mm bolt, and you want to remove that. Once that bolt is removed, you can just reach back and gently pry the bumper off. As you can see, all the clips came out. If it's giving you resistance, I'd recommend getting some heat, either with the heat gun or like a hair dryer, just warming this area up, just so you don't crack anything. if you plan on maybe reusing your bumper. But in this case, this bumper is pretty much trash. For the next step, you would have to get underneath the car. So you might have to lift it on some ramps or some jack stands. And you would take off the splash guard underneath. In our case, we don't have it, but here's a quick little view. As you can see, there's a Dremel right there, and it runs along the bumper. Alright, so once you take off the splash guard, you can then remove the bumper from the car. I'd highly recommend you get a second person to help you do this simultaneously. But you would just go at it from the side. You want to take these tabs out, as well as this right here. There's a tab right here. There's a little hook on this portion, which goes right here. So you want to press down and pull towards you. And don't yank too hard, because you'll have some wires you need to disconnect. For starters, you have the driver's side fog light, which is a sole connection. So there's the wire right there. It's just a push tab. You push it out, you free that. Then you have a sensor in the middle, which I believe is behind the infinity badge. So that goes in this area right here. You just press down on it, and that's the connection right there. And on the passenger side, you have two. One is for the passenger side fog light, and the other one is going to be for all the front sensors if you do have it. These tend to be pretty brittle and hard to remove, so I'd recommend heating this up, and then it should be easy enough to slip off. I forgot to mention the front indicators. These will have their own separate connections. So it just looks like this. You'll be able to find it right there. And that's for both sides. And then voila, after you take off all the wire connections, you'll be able to fully remove the bumper from the car. The next step would be to transfer all the hardware over, such as the sensors, the fog lights, onto the new bumper. In our case, we don't have the fog light housing, and it already comes pre-installed with its own mesh grills, so we won't have to worry about that. But in your case, you would have to take off the sensors and replace them. The customer does not want his fog lights. They don't even have the mechanism to install them. He also won't be putting the front indicators on, since he solved that problem with the side view mirrors. So in our case, we are just removing the front sensors, as well as this rubber grommet for the engine bay waterproofing. So the front two sensors are easy enough. As you can see, there's just a Phillips head screw on both sides you can remove. On the sensors underneath the headlight, you will need to remove this black plastic piece which holds the sensor in place. You can use heat and just pull off on the double-sided taping, which you will need to put onto the new bumper. So be careful with this. So this is the part where the fabrication comes in, and how well you do this depends on how janky you are. But we have all these sensors taken off. One thing in our case is, this is for the driver's side, I believe. We had to lengthen the sensor itself just because it wouldn't actually fit with the stock wiring. So it looked shitty, but we went ahead and we just spliced the wires with similar gauges. We use heat shrink and then some electrical tape on top, just to ensure that the connection sticks. As you can see, it's just two wires, so it's pretty simple. You just get wires of the same gauge, cut it, splice it, connect it however you want, and you can lengthen it. Unfortunately, because this is a Q50 getting a Q60 front bumper, the front badge is way too small for this. As you can kind of see here, it does not fit. So you will have to purchase a stock Q60 front emblem. So for now, he's just going to go noseless until he does get that. And the next step is going to be to swap this rubber grommet over. But more importantly, we have these top front bumper clips. So as you can see, there's two 10mm right here. Once you remove that, you'll just have some tabs to push in, and you can swap them over. Also, same as last time, if you do unfortunately mix these up, they will be labeled. There's an L right there. And the way this goes is these hooks go onto this part. So this top face right here, and you just match the threads up. And the way you remove this black rubber grommet piece, you'll see a bunch of push tabs. So until we got 1, 2, 3, 17 of them. And it's just like any other tabs, you just go underneath and you just pry up like how I did with this. So quick little example. Let me see if I can do it with one hand here. Sorry about the camera shaking, but let's see. Just go underneath it and then lift right up. And you want to make sure you install this rubber grommet piece before you put these brackets on, since the bolts go within them. Another fabrication tip is, unfortunately, the indentation holes don't line up to where you really need to put the rubber grommet. So I just laid it down on top. I put one on one corner, one in the middle, and one right here. So now I have my rough outline, and I can go ahead and just drill all the spots out. You just want to make sure that the rubber is touching all the way to the edge and you get the corners lined up. So now we fully have the rubber grommet and the bracket on. Next thing is the sensors. So they're going to provide you with, for the front two, you're going to have to swap those out because they are slightly different. It won't line up. So we have an issue since this is fiberglass and the mold's not 100%. This little corner is not fitting up properly. It lifts up a little too high. So what we did is we took a heat gun and we heated up the area and we're bending it down. That is helping, but it's still not working. So our next solution is to remove this bracket right here. It's not as important since we're gonna have the top being held in, this, and then you're gonna have the underguard as well. And let's see if that works. But with the fiberglass bumper, if you have areas that are not fitting, for starters, this is from the seller, by the way, but for starters, you want to take some heat in form of a heat gun. You can try heating up the area, and then you can like massage it down, hold it down once it cools, and basically you're reshaping the bumper. Another option is you could take sandpaper or a Dremel tool, and if you have to trim some edges down, like let's say this is poking in too much, just trim it down slightly. And yeah, whatever you need to do for your bumper. It's pretty much, every single bumper is going to be completely different, unfortunately, so you got to do what you got to do. So taking off that little white piece did actually help. So now we're just going to shave off this little lip since we got the piece removed anyways. This side fits on smoothly. We did a little bit of testing and make the gap. So we're going to cut it flush and it should go right onto the car. And in order to take these off, you just have these screws on the bottom of where the piece is. So you're just going to go underneath just like that and you'll see them. So we're not quite there yet. The bumper isn't reaching. So right here, we're going to be sanding down this top part just slightly and then a little bit more towards the bottom. But this is a lot better fit than last time. We went ahead and took the headlights off just to see if the bumper actually does fit, which it does. Looks pretty sick actually. Reminds me of the Scream mask. But at this point, the headlight is in the way of our clearance, so we're just going to have to keep shaving down 1 millimeter at a time. For us, we have a little bit of tightness at the top corner right here, as well as all across this edge on both sides. We're just going to keep going little by little, and it should be good to go. Bumper is officially on. The trick is you just got to go millimeter by millimeter, keep shaving around the headlight. That's where our problem area was, and eventually you'll get it on. Unfortunately, it's not the coolest looking because the tow hook cover and the Infinity logo is not here, but it still looks pretty sick. Now that the bumper is officially on, the last thing we're going to do is put these black trim pieces on. We're just going to go ahead and add some double-sided tape either to the bumper, which is probably the easiest. Heat it up to make sure the glue liquefies, and just slip these right on.